Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Leonard Montoute, Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Honorable Guy Joseph, Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation. His Excellency Mahendra Singh Kanyal, High Commissioner for the Embassy of India in Suriname, attending with us virtually. Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office, World Food Program, Barbados. Ms. Esther Rigobert, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and Public Service. Mrs. Velda Joseph, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Mr. Claudius Emmanuel, Permanent Secretary, Department of Economic Development. Chief Economist, Department of Economic Development, Mr. Descartes. Special invited guests joining us here physically and those of you who are joining us virtually. Team members of the Government Information Service, personnel from the various media houses, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome and good afternoon. You who have blessed us here with your physical presence in the midst of COVID-19, we want to say again a special thank you, especially to you, Mr. Chapman, who was able to fly over and join us here. We know Ambassador Kayal, as much as you would have liked to be here, we do understand. Our objective here today is to witness the official signage between the government of St. Lucia and the World Food Program for the implementation of cash-based transfer distribution program through the government social protection platform. Today, the India-UN Development Partnership Fund and the World Food Program have collaborated to assist St. Lucia in its efforts to respond to the impact COVID-19 has had on our economy and our wider nation. Today's event provides a source of comfort and hope that through the empathetic and generous hearts of our world leaders, be that friendly foreign governments or international organizations, the world will not fail itself. The government of St. Lucia is particularly pleased today that its Public Assistance Program, PAP, at the Ministry of Equity will receive a most needed financial boost, as we are in the process of introducing a series of measures to mitigate the socio-economic impact of this pandemic on individuals and households. The Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, in collaboration with the Department of Economic Development, have deliberately reached out and requested assistance and support, and we are indeed pleased today that we can witness the positive results. While we are here to witness this significant event, more importantly, we are also here to express our profound gratitude to our donors who continue to rally our cause and have demonstrated high levels of commitment to St. Lucia in its implementation efforts of its economic recovery and resilience plan. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, once again, thank you for being here. As we move into our program, we will begin with a word of prayer. We will invite Mr. Descartes, our Chief Economist from Economic Development, to bless us with a word of prayer.
You bow your heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for your tender mercies and kindness towards us during what is evidently a very difficult period in our world's history. We ask that you bless all who made today possible. We especially thank you for the agencies, in particular the Government of India and the World Food Program, for their generous donation, which will go towards providing support to our poor and most vulnerable during this pandemic. We ask that you bless these proceedings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Descart. And we move straight into our official welcome and the opening remarks by Mrs. Velda Joseph, Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Mrs. Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Permanent Secretary. Honorable Leonard Montoute, Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Honorable Guy Joseph, Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation. His Excellency Mahendra Singh Kanyal, High Commissioner for the Embassy of India in Suriname. Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office, World Food Programme, Barbados. Ms. Esther Rigobert, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service. Mr. Claudius Emmanuel, Permanent Secretary, Department of Economic Development. Specially invited guest, both physical and virtual. Team members of the Government Information Service, personnel from various media houses, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon to you. It is my distinct honor to warmly welcome all of you to the official sign-in for the Human Security and Sustainable Development, a COVID-19 response project, a project which seeks to support efforts to manage the spread of COVID-19 within St. Lucia and simultaneously address the strengthening of national safety nets that safeguard the vulnerable and at-risk households and communities. I will inform briefly, in short order, of the details of this project, but I must indicate from the outset that this initiative means a lot to us at the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, as it will allow us to deliver much-needed social assistance to poor and vulnerable households in keeping with our mandate. It will also allow us to provide relief to the growing number of individuals who frequent our offices daily, seeking assistance for access to their basic needs. It will allow us, through a targeted approach, to provide a helping hand to families who need it most. And it will allow us to play our part in efforts aimed at national recovery from the impact of this crisis in respect of both the social and economic sectors. I will also take the opportunity now to express our sincere appreciation and most profound gratitude to the Government of India, the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Operations, ECHO, the United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and the World Food Programme for the generous donation of over $700,000 to support the social protection component of the said project. And now I will share a summary of the component of this project before I take my seat. The social protection component of the Human Security and Sustainable Development, a COVID-19 response project, will support the horizontal expansion of the Public Assistance Program, or the PAP as we call it, through the addition of 1,000 households to the program for a period of 6 months, after which alternate payment arrangements will be activated for continuation of support. This means that under this project, 1,000 new households will receive stipends in accordance with the established payment regime, thereby increasing our beneficiary total from 2,600 households to 3,600 households. On a smaller scale, it will also support the vertical expansion of the Social Assistance Program for persons living with HIV, our PLHIV program. In other words, beneficiaries of the PLHIV program will benefit from an increase in their food voucher value, from $100 to $200 monthly for 6 months. And that program has started. It started in July, and it will end in December. I will also share that this program complements a number of other social protection initiatives of the ministry, most notably initiatives aligned to the Human Capital Resilience Project and the SDG Fund Project, where the ministry will again be working with the WFP and other UN partners. As a ministry, we pledge to continue improving our social protection framework as well as our systems and approaches to ensure that these are comprehensive, shock responsive, and inclusive, as we want to leave no one behind. We therefore look forward to your continued support and collaboration as we implement this project and others in the interest of our vulnerable brothers and sisters. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining in today's activity. Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Joseph. And we move on to Ms. Esther Rigobert, our Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and Public Service, to deliver brief remarks.
Pleasant good day to all. I wish to adopt the protocol already established and wish to thank all of you for viewing in and listening to this. COVID-19, we all know, has been one of the greatest occurrences of this century and this decade. It has wreaked havoc on countries across the world. It has brought fear, distress on economies, including St. Lucia. What initially started as a domestic viral outbreak in East Asia has mushroomed into perhaps the most colossal global health crisis, claiming millions of lives and threatening to plunge the global economy into the worst economic crisis imaginable to humanity. For St. Lucia, the 6th most tourism-dependent economy in the world, COVID-19 is perhaps the greatest disruption to this small, vulnerable economy. The impact of the pandemic can be felt through several transmission channels, most notably in the severe halting of exports of tourism services, which accounts for more than 80% of foreign exchange and more than 50% of gross domestic product. Preliminary estimates from several institutions, including the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, project that St. Lucia's economy will contract by approximately 18%. A direct result of this deep decline in tourism arrivals is the labor market disruptions manifested in substantial job displacements and contraction in the tourism and services sector, in addition to the drastic drop in fiscal revenues needed to respond to the expanded public outlay in public health and for the provision of income support to those who have lost jobs or witnessed a reduction in their incomes. The government of St. Lucia, recognizing very early that COVID-19 was perhaps here to stay a little longer than we would have liked or anticipated, would require to coexist with the virus. As such, the government launched a 3-pronged COVID-19 response strategy. The first part of that strategy was the public health response, which involved the strengthening and reorienting of our public health system to respond to community spread of the virus, which would or could overwhelm our healthcare system. To date, St. Lucia has safely managed the healthcare crisis and has been lauded for its stellar management of the virus and is given the enviable title of the country with the lowest COVID-19 index, which is a measurement of the number of cases for every 100 of thousands of citizens. On account of the high dependence on the tourism sector, which witnessed mass booking cancellations in addition to tight domestic restrictions on non-essential activities, the country witnessed a sudden spike in unemployment. With this came the need to support incomes of those dislocated and displaced by COVID-19. As a result, phase 2 of the COVID-19 response plan was launched, which is the Social Stabilization Plan, which was geared primarily towards providing income support through the National Insurance Corporation for NIC contributors, my apologies, and also for non-NIC contributors through the government system implemented by the Department of Equity. To date, between these two programs, a total of 27,000 applicants have been received, of which more than 13,000 persons have received much-needed support. However, cognizant of the severe strain the drop in demand was having and continues to have on business community, in particular the micro, small, and medium enterprises, a third response plan was released. On July 12, 2020, the government of St. Lucia launched phase 3 of its COVID-19 response plan, dubbed Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan. The plan, which was developed by a multi-sectoral committee of both public and private stakeholders, is anchored on 6 pillars, 3 recovery pillars and 3 resilience pillars. The Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan contains a suite of 32 interventions, one of which is being funded largely today. Today's event is the 15th intervention in the Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan, which is the horizontal expansion of public assistance program here in St. Lucia, as an intervention geared at mitigating the probability of vulnerable households being plunged into deeper poverty. So today's proceedings give me great joy as we are delivering on one of these 32 interventions, bringing relief to many poor and vulnerable individuals and households. Notwithstanding this milestone, we are very mindful that there is significant work ahead of us before we can safely recover from this pandemic. Having said this, I would like to thank the Government of India for providing these grant resources to fund St. Lucia's Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan. Rest assured that we do not take this gesture of goodwill lightly. We are very aware that even your government is still grappling with COVID-19. I also wish to thank the UN World Food Programme for its support, both monetary and technical, through implementation, as well as all other agencies, including the European Union, the UK Aid, UN Office for South-South Cooperation, and last but by no means least, the permanent secretaries and staff in the Department or Ministry of Equity, my apologies, Equity, Social Justice, Empowerment and Local Government, the Department of Foreign Affairs through the Permanent Representative Office of the UN, and the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation. On behalf of the Minister for Finance and the Department of Finance, as well as the Economic Recovery and Resilience Committee, I convey our heartfelt thanks to all of you for making this event a reality today. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of the proceedings.
Thank you, PS Rigobert, and Ministry of Equity certainly appreciates the level of collaboration thus far. For me, I'm just joining the team, and it's certainly an honor, a privilege, to recognize the synergy and the togetherness between the Ministry of Economic Development, wider finance, and the Ministry of Equity. And like I was saying to my colleague Descartes earlier this week, often enough we would find persons pooling and saying it's not yours, it's mine, it's not mine, it's yours. But certainly the experience thus far, and PS Joseph attests to it well, there's a deep level of commitment and togetherness in realizing our true mandate, recovering from COVID-19, which needs all hands on deck. Thank you. As we move on, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Honorable Guy Joseph, Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation to deliver remarks.
Thank you very much, Mistress of Ceremonies. Let me adopt the protocol already established and say a pleasant good afternoon to all. It gives me great pleasure once again, second time in 2 weeks, to be here on behalf of the Ministry of Economic Development to express our appreciation and our thanks to the various agencies involved in initiatives of this nature. And today, it is one that is special, given the crisis brought upon by COVID-19. We would know that I think St. Lucia was doing fairly well 8 months ago, prior to COVID-19, when we saw our unemployment numbers at an all-time low of about 16.8% and well projected to be in single digits in the year 2020. But how things have changed in such a short space of time. Like global warming, we contributed nothing to what we are experiencing today. But the reality is every country is grappling with what has been caused by this pandemic. In trying to understand and come to terms with the reality, we have seen a major impact on the economy of the entire world, but more so on small island developing states. But what puts us in a more peculiar situation is our ranking in the world in terms of being middle-income developing country and the ability to get aid that is really required. And that is why programs of this nature are so significant for us. Aiming for the SDG goal of the elimination of poverty by the year 2030 is now staring us in the face as one that we may not be able to accomplish given what COVID-19 has done. And while this decade was geared towards that, I don't think that our spirit should be daunted to the point where we would not aim to achieve it, even if it looks like a much bigger challenge than it was initially. Given that the World Bank is projecting that upwards of 71 million people will be forced into extreme poverty as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. The majority of these people are from developing countries, of which St. Lucia fits right into the bracket. So it is important for us to understand that what we are faced with as a country is one that calls for the collective understanding of the entire citizenry of the country. It is easy to ask governments to step in and to do as much as they can. And that is why we are here. But the reality that stares us in the face is that eventually we may have to fend a lot on our own to deal with the crisis that is before us. And that is why we are extremely appreciative of this gesture by the Indian government to be able to step in at a time like this to impact the lives of the most vulnerable people in our society. For the longest while, we know that the list of people who needs public assistance is below the numbers that are really in need. And to be able in such a critical period to add 1,000 persons to that list is really bringing a great sigh of relief to a number of households. And we would know that you can easily multiply that by 5 per household. So if you impact 1,000 additional homes, you most likely would be impacting 5,000 people more directly. And we are talking about the very basics of food. Because looking at the pandemic and what it has caused, given our dependence on tourism and what is happening, and even if we have reopened the economy and we have seen a trickling in the tourism sector, it is going to take us a little while to get back to where we were. It would call for lots of adjustments. And so, through the World Food Program and what is being done by the Indian government, I feel good today that I can sit with my colleague minister who's responsible for equity, who presides over this ministry with the responsibility of having to come up with an additional 1,000 persons. Now, given what COVID has done, I am not even sure how you are able to come up with the 1,000 people, because some families that may have been riding very well with both persons being employed in the tourism sector, both heads of the household, may be impacted to the point where there is zero income coming in. We may look at these people and we may say, well, they don't qualify to be on that list. So I don't envy your position, my colleague minister and your permanent secretary and your team, because it is going to be a challenge to come up. When you have 10,000 people to choose 1,000 from, you indeed have a difficult task. It is a challenge, but it is taking us one step closer to bringing much needed relief. And I think that the work being done by the government over the last few months, I know the PS of Finance is here, and we trouble her a lot about the payments that need to be made, but the revenues are not there. So when a government would step in, having to deal with their own challenges and make a donation of this amount to St. Lucia, it is indeed appreciated. I congratulate the teams that have worked to make this possible, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Finance. I know the Ministry of Equity is playing a very critical role, and also the team at the Ministry of Economic Development, because it is the collaboration of all of these entities that puts the program together. And then when we go out to our partner agencies, our partner governments, that they can come in and assist us. So really, it is something that we appreciate, and we are looking forward to the implementation of that phase of it. Because while we've done the income support, we've done the support for the informal sector, we've given some support to the public transport drivers, there are still vulnerable people among us. And that is why I appeal to our collective reasoning as a country and our compassion to be able to play our part in reaching out to our neighbors, our friends, and those who are in need. because there may be somebody you think living next to you who is faring very well, and you may think that they don't need anything. As much as our outside partners are helping us, I believe that as a country, we have a collective responsibility towards each other and towards helping us to ride out this difficult period. COVID is not going to destroy the spirit of St. Lucia. We are going to rise, and I believe that the world will rise above this. But it will call for a lot of discipline, a lot of strict measures, as we have seen uncomfortable positions like having to wear a mask, seeing what the protocols are in the schools as school reopened this week, and what the teachers are called to do is what some of the nurses have been called to do at the hospitals because of the demands. And we've not been able to increase the staff, but yet still they have to disinfect the desk and do all of the necessaries. It calls for a challenge, but we can ride it out, and we applaud and thank the government of India for this contribution as we continue to work together as a unified body internationally to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves, the elimination of poverty. I believe that this gesture will help St. Lucia in helping some families to mitigate the impact of poverty. I thank you, and may God bless all of us.
Thank you, Minister Joseph, and I wish if you can just allow me to reiterate, COVID-19 will not destroy the spirit of St. Lucia. Indeed. We move right along as we invite, well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the best of us, the locals, from the government of St. Lucia, but we again are very pleased to have Mr. Regis Chapman from the World Food Program, again, who thought it possible to move from Dominica, in transit, of course, and to be with us here. Mr. Chapman, again, we appreciate your presence, your physical presence here, and we look forward to us getting a little bit closer. For many of us, we knew your name so well because we see it all over our correspondence, but never met you, at least after this ceremony, that we can get a little bit deeper. We invite Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office World Food Program, to deliver brief remarks.
Thank you, and let me also adopt the protocol already established. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure for the United Nations World Food Program, or WFP, to be part of a multi-partner approach to support the government of St. Lucia and its people through the expansion of assistance provided under the Public Assistance Program. This serves as an integral part of the national COVID-19 response. We are indeed living in unprecedented times. In the midst of a global pandemic, St. Lucia, along with many other countries in CARICOM, acted swiftly and decisively to curb the spread of COVID-19 amongst the population. Measures put in place to restrict movement and protect borders proved successful in minimizing deaths and containing the virus. Yet, as a highly tourism-dependent nation, St. Lucia, as well as other countries in the region, felt the harsh socioeconomic impact due to the immediate halt of national and global economies. WFP supported the rollout of 2 rounds of remote food security and livelihoods assessments commissioned by the CARICOM Secretariat in April and June of this year. The results confirm what we know to be true. COVID-19 has had a major impact on livelihoods and food security across the region. The opportunity to compare impact between these 2 rounds of surveys highlight that particularly amongst the lowest income levels, the situation is worsening and the crisis is deepening. Despite the fact that countries are slowly opening up and increased movement within countries, return of local businesses, operations, and even managed regional and international travel, persons reported income and job loss at higher rates, and the cost of food and other essentials continues to rise, resulting in increased food insecurity. 1 in 3 persons reported eating less, skipping meals, or even going a day without food. In this context, we understand the challenge that lays before us, both in protecting and providing necessary assistance to persons most vulnerable to shocks. I would like to recognize the government of St. Lucia for their commitment to putting St. Lucians at the center of the COVID-19 response and recovery plans. Like many other countries across the Caribbean, St. Lucia is further challenged with high indebtedness and low reserves to be able to reach many who may require support both within and outside of this current crisis. Yet WFP and its UN family have worked closely with the passionate and committed individuals of the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government, and Empowerment to discuss ways in which national social protection can better serve the most impacted in a crisis and in the face of ongoing and compounded risks and vulnerabilities. The signing of this agreement today launches the next phase of implementation of an expanded public assistance program. Enumerators are currently on the ground carrying out assessments and certifying or recertifying potential beneficiaries. And WFP is able to support the national efforts to expand the PAP by 1,000 households, as has been mentioned, allowing persons to meet their families' essential needs, including food, education, health, and others, over the next 6 months. And this is made possible through key partnerships and the kind support of the India-UN Development Partnership Fund in collaboration with the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, the United Nations Joint SDG Fund implemented alongside sister UN agencies, UNICEF, ILO, UNDP, and UN Women, the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations, or ECHO, the United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and we have also been able to leverage WFP's own internal resources as well. WFP is part of a multi-partner action spearheaded by the government to ensure the most impacted men, women, and children in St. Lucia receive assistance in the short to medium term, recognizing that we're still in the midst of this economic crisis. In this regard, we're hopeful that our collective support, combined with investments by the government, will help to unlock opportunities for longer-term support to the most vulnerable populations, including those impacted by COVID-19. In addition to these efforts, WFP and its partners will continue to support St. Lucia's journey in strengthening its social protection system and programs to improve registration and targeting of beneficiaries, delivery mechanisms, and other vital interventions to not only enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of its national cash transfer program as part of COVID-19 response, but also to strengthen these systems to respond to future health, economic, and climatic shocks. It is indeed an honor to continue working with the government of St. Lucia and with our partners now and for several years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard me earlier, we have High Commissioner Mandeha Singh Kanyal, who's with us virtually. We invite you, Ambassador, to deliver brief remarks.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. You can proceed.
Thank you.
Great.
Honorable Guy Joseph, Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation. Honorable Leonard Montaut, Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Ms. Esther Rigobert, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service. Ms. Velda Joseph, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office, World Food Program. Distinguished guests, senior officials, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocols observed. My warm greetings to all of you from Suriname. It is indeed my privileged honor to be with you all through this virtual conference on the occasion. Today, the whole world is in the grip of an unprecedented pandemic which has shattered lives, livelihoods, health of millions of people, and economy across the world, and which has disrupted every aspect of normal human life, something no one had imagined in the beginning of the year 2020. India is among the few countries which have displayed great resilience in fighting the impact of the pandemic with determination. India was among the first in creating a responsive system of lockdown. India was among the first to advocate the use of masks and face coverings as a public health measure. India was also among the earliest to create public awareness campaigns about social distancing, which can also be used, in fact, as a social vaccine. In record time, medical infrastructure in India was scaled up, be it COVID hospitals, COVID beds, ICU capacities, and more. Starting from one testing lab in January this year, India has now around 1,600 labs across the country. Starting from almost nothing, India is today the second largest PPE kits manufacturer in the world. Effective domestic measures taken by Government of India have led to a significant improvement in recovery rate, which is about 78% today, and fatality rate, which is 1.77% compared to world average of 3.60%. India has set up an integrated command structure to monitor and treat COVID-19 cases. Over 1.2 million COVID-19 tests a day are being carried out in India today. The available human resources for handling COVID-19 cases and the crisis in India is about 17 million, of which 9 million are healthcare professionals and frontline workers. Indigenously developed digital tools such as Arogya Setu app is being widely used by over 140 million people in India to predict emerging hotspots. This is in line with India's spirit of challenging the challenge to emerge stronger. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, through the entire COVID-19 period and the lockdown, the government of India was very clear on one thing: the poor have to be protected. The Prime Minister Welfare Program for the Poor is among the largest support systems seen anywhere in the world. Free food grain is being provided to 800 million people. The scheme operates for 8 months. Free cooking gas has been provided to around 80 million families. Cash support has been provided to around 345 million farmers and needy people. The scheme has given much needed employment for migrant workers by creating almost 200 million person days of work. India also undertook the world's largest repatriation exercise in different parts of the world. So far, over 1.3 million Indian nationals stranded overseas have returned safely to their homes in India. Under air bubble arrangements, Air India and a few foreign airlines have now resumed operations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, India's response has not been confined to meeting our domestic requirements. India was the first responder to humanitarian crisis in her region by deploying medical teams, dispatched naval assets, which demonstrated to India's strong commitment to Prime Minister Modi's vision of security and growth for all in the region, known as SAGAR. As a responsible stakeholder in global health supply chains, India ensured timely access to essential drugs and medical items for over 150 countries and provided medical supplies as a symbol of solidarity to countries in South Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. India simultaneously is fast
You need a screenshot.
working
There's only
on.
one person.
No, I just need to screenshot the signing.
Oh, the signing. Okay, so you're looking for that moment specifically. You're waiting for that moment.
I needed
Hello?
to screenshot, but well, I need a screenshot. I screenshot everybody.
So this is a document. I'll show you which one it is.
Hello,
Do you still have the
hello,
Did you delete everything?
hello.
You can proceed, please. We apologize.
Simultaneously, India is fast working on developing COVID-19 vaccine under the supervision of its National Expert Group on Vaccine. 3 major Indian companies are currently involved in vaccine trials, which have the total producing capacity of 300 million doses of the vaccine a month. Currently, India produces 60% of world's requirement of vaccines. India is world's largest producer and largest exporter of high quality and affordable generic drugs and medical equipment. The COVID-19 crisis has sown the seeds of the economic renaissance in the form of self-reliant India. As visioned by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a self-reliant India will stand on 5 pillars: economy that introduces quantum jump, infrastructure tuned with the new India, a system based on 21st century technology, India's vibrant demography and demand, which will utilize India's requirement and supply chain to full capacity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, India recognized early the need for global engagement to forge a coherent global response to corona pandemic and has been engaged with global and regional leaders and groupings. Prime Minister Modi participated in various virtual multilateral summits and talked to scores of his global counterparts. External Affairs Minister of India engaged with his global counterparts, including Foreign Minister of St. Lucia. Prime Minister hosted a virtual conference of South Asia Association of Regional Cooperation, known as SARC, and pledged USD 10 million for SARC emergency fund to combat the COVID-19 pandemic in the region. We are glad that India's advocacy for people-centric globalization was reflected in the G20 decision on debt service suspension for developing countries. Global access to medicines, vaccines, and medical equipment to combat COVID-19 is vital for all countries and peoples. India strongly believes that there should be free and open sharing of medical research and new drugs and vaccines. As a goodwill gesture for Caribbean countries, which has its historical linkages with diaspora, India joined CARICOM Development Fund as its international development partner last year with contribution of USD 1 million. India's development cooperation partnership is comprehensive and human-centric. It is marked by respect, diversity, care for the future, and sustainable development. It does not come with any conditions or influenced by any political or commercial consideration. It reflects the development priorities of India's partner nations. It ranges from commerce to culture, energy to engineering, health to housing, IT to infrastructure, disaster relief, and humanitarian assistance to restoration and preservation of cultural and heritage assets. India's election as a non-permanent member of the UNSC with 184 votes out of 192 for 21-22 was a vote of confidence in India's capability to shape the global agenda. India's work in the UNSC will be guided by 5 SSs in Prime Minister Modi's words, that is respect, dialogue, cooperation, peace, and prosperity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, India and St. Lucia enjoy cordial relations and interact closely in the UN, Commonwealth, NAM, and at various multilateral and international fora. Our two countries have shown commitment in the spirit of South-South cooperation to achieve Millennium Development Goals in the fields of education, environmental sustainability, health, and poverty reduction. We have convergence of views on important regional and global issues. India and St. Lucia are much more than diplomatic allies and are partners in development. India has always championed the cause of small states and small island developing states, in particular on issues directly impacting the life and livelihood of people like sustainable development, climate change, restructuring of the new economic world order with reformed multilateralism with the reformed UN at the center. We are happy to see that the corona pandemic spread in St. Lucia has been contained remarkably under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Alan Chesney, Prime Minister of St. Lucia. India is also pleased that St. Lucia has benefited from Project Poverty Reduction through livestock development funded under IFSA amounting to USD 1.2 million, which has since been accomplished. Just recently, India handed over medical supplies and protective gear worth USD 100,000 to assist government of St. Lucia in its fight against COVID-19. Under UNDP fund for the skills training for St. Lucia's marginalized youth project amounting to about 992,000 is in progress, and now the latest approved grant of USD 500,000 under India UNDP fund for project Human Security and Sustainable Development, the COVID-19 response, we hope will help strengthen the flagship public assistance program of Government of St. Lucia. The projects in hand are symbolic of solidarity and strong and friendly bilateral relations that exist between India and St. Lucia. India remains committed to supporting its friends and partners in the collective fight against the pandemic and is their reliable and dependable partner. India also remains committed to extend technical cooperation and contribute to capacity building and skill development of human resources of St. Lucia as per its specific needs and requirements under Indian Economic and Technical Cooperation, On-Site ITEC and E-ITEC. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the current situation demands a fresh mindset, a mindset where the approach to development is human-centric, where there is a spirit of compassion and cooperation between everyone. With this spirit, I offer a prayer which is as follows in English. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one come to grief. The message of this prayer for universal well-being is India's unique gift to humanity. With these words, I express our best wishes, good health, and fortitude to the friendly people of St. Lucia and for all of you present on the occasions. Thank you.
Your Excellency, we thank you immensely for your most inspiring and encouraging words. And we too recommit our efforts towards deepening cooperation with India as we continue to see you as one of our most valuable allies. As we move along, ladies and gentlemen, our very own Honorable Leonard Montut, Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, will address us. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mistress of Ceremonies. I'd like to adopt the protocol already established and proceed immediately with my presentation. Let me say that I am extremely pleased to be here today, participating in this ceremony of immense significance, not only to my Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, but to many individuals and households who, as a result of the unfortunate circumstances, are characterized today as poor and vulnerable. I also share feelings of tremendous gratitude and appreciation in thinking of the occasion which has brought us here today. I offer my gratitude to all those who contributed to the process up to this point, in particular to the Government of India, the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian and Operations, ECHO, the United Kingdom Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and the World Food Programme, the financing agencies for this necessary and timely initiative. Over $700,000 US has been secured for this project, $500,000 US coming from the India UN Partnership Fund for Development, and over $200,000 US from the World Food Programme internal resources in collaboration with the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Operations, ECHO, the United Kingdom Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and the SDG Fund and the World Food Programme internal resources. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, the COVID-19 public health emergency has had significant negative economic and social impacts globally. The impact has been felt in the immediate, and it is expected to extend well into the long term. On our regional shores, we acknowledge the economic impact of the pandemic on the tourism-dependent economies of the Caribbean region, and we have watched almost helplessly as national economic and social development gains have been eroded, putting a strain on social assistance programs and leaving vulnerable households to navigate through the crisis. In St. Lucia, we have watched our unemployment figures soar as hundreds of persons have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19, and we have witnessed the steady climb of individuals and households seeking various forms of assistance from social agencies over the past month. Ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt, the current situation is a challenging one for all of us, but I take this opportunity to remind us of the particular circumstances of the poor and vulnerable among us, and of the need for deliberate focus and targeted interventions to address their needs within the broad framework of response, recovery, and resilience building. And so for me, I believe that part of the answer lies in the adequacy of social protection systems, which can prove to be crucial as a response strategy in an environment such as this one, as was proven to be the case during the financial, food, and fuel crisis of 2008. I am pleased to share that our understanding of the critical role of social protection within the context of hazard, impacts, or shocks, guided by my ministry in determining appropriate response programs and leveraging its resources and networks in such a way to allow for critical support to households most in need of assistance. With the support of various donors, we considered and planned for the vertical expansion of 3 cash transfer programs, given that scaled-up cash transfers can help in a meaningful way to alleviate financial barriers faced by families in accessing goods and services. These programs are the Child Disability Grant Program, the Foster Care Program, and the Social Assistance Program for persons living with HIV. Put simply, beneficiaries of these programs were earmarked for a top-up of $100 on their monthly allowances for 3 months, with the commencement of disbursement being July 2020. The ministry also considered and discussed the horizontal expansion of the Public Assistance Program, PAP, to allow for the inclusion of 1,000 additional eligible households onto the program in the shortest possible time. For persons who may not know, the Public Assistance Program, or PAP as it is called, in St. Lucia, is the largest cash transfer program providing direct financial support to vulnerable individuals and households, including the elderly, persons with disability, single mother households, and families who fall below the poverty line. The PAP has a strong poverty alleviation focus and covers approximately 2,600 households. Prior to now, recognizing the limited coverage of the PAP, there was an intention to expand the coverage of the PAP under the Human Capital Resilience Project, a project being funded through the World Bank and designed to drive the reform of our social protection system. However, the ministry, understanding the current context and recognizing the imperative for such an activity at this time, sought to advance or fast-track this component of our activity. I am pleased to say that we were able to achieve this through another mechanism, and as you are now aware, this is the reason for our ceremony today, to officially mark the beginning of this PAP expansion initiative, which, as indicated previously, will provide some relief to eligible vulnerable households. For purposes of information sharing, this expansion of this public assistance program is being undertaken under a project titled the Human Security and Sustainable Development, a COVID-19 Response Project, which has as its prime objective the provision of support to efforts aimed at managing the spread of COVID-19 within St. Lucia, and simultaneously address the strengthening of national social safety nets that safeguard the vulnerable and at-risk households and communities on the island. Through the expansion of PAP, alongside other ministry-led social protection initiatives, which constitute one of the core pillars of the National COVID-19 Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan, the ministry intends to address critical considerations required to ensure social inclusion, reduce inequality, eradicate poverty, and build household resilience to shocks. And so, while these are challenging times for everyone, including my ministry, given its mandate, this is an occasion that warms our hearts and will put a smile on the faces of beneficiaries. It is one that reflects the power of collaboration and the significant outcomes that are possible when people work together. It reflects caring and a commitment to helping others, and I really look forward to the full implementation of this program and its impact. In keeping with contemporary thoughts on the fundamental role of social protection in such circumstances, the ministry believes that supporting the economic stability of families in times of crisis does not only yield social benefits, but also has important macroeconomic impacts. As emphasized by the IMF and World Bank, social protection serves as a pillar of counter-cyclical economic policy by delivering rapid financial support to those that need it as crisis hits, providing resources to those that will use them to both directly protect themselves and support the economy. And so, for us, it is a win-win, an approach that addresses both social and economic needs. On behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia, I would like to once again extend our sincere gratitude to the government and people of the Republic of India, the United Nations, the India UN Partnership Development Fund, and the World Food Programme for financially supporting this initiative. We are deeply appreciative of your generous contribution to our response efforts and assure you that it will be utilized for achievement of the agreed objectives. To the other agencies within the United Nations system, the St. Lucia Mission in New York, the Department of Economic Development and Civil Aviation, and the Department of Finance, thank you for your considerable assistance and support throughout this process. To my team at the Ministry of Equity, thank you for the hard work on this initiative and your dedication, commitment, and passion as you continue to deliver requisite social services to persons in need. I am confident that you will implement this project successfully, as you have done with other projects in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Montoute. And just on behalf of the team minister, based on what I've seen for the past 8 days on the team, you have no worry. There's true deep commitment. I think all we need now is, together with Economic Development and Finance, have our other line agencies providing the requisite support. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the pinnacle, to the highlight of today's event, the actual signing of the agreement, which will be done by our PS of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government, Mrs. Velda Joseph, and Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office, World Food Program. They will move over to my left to do the signage. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our signing ceremony for today. As we come to that end, yes, we have heard quite a number of our speakers as well as our honorable ministers expressing gratitude, thanking India, WFP, and all the other agencies aligned with this valuable donation. However, we want to take that special time, the special moment, to express our gratitude as a government of St. Lucia to all those concerned, and we will call on our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Emmanuel, PS for Economic Development, to deliver the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mistress of Ceremonies. I wish to adopt the protocol that has already been established. As Permanent Secretary in the department within the government of St. Lucia that is tasked with the mandate of Donor Coordination and Development Cooperation, I'm indeed delighted to be part of this very important signing ceremony. Much has already been said by the previous speakers who have preceded me today. And so I will do the prudent thing, and which is to convey heartfelt thanks to all who have made today possible. Before I do so, however, permit me to highlight what I see as a silver lining which is emerging out of the chaos that COVID-19 has thrust upon us. By that I mean I am referring to the deepening sense of international cooperation and the new commitment to multilateralism. We will all agree that prior to COVID-19, there was a surge in nationalism and xenophobic sentiments that threatened to upend much of the advances in global prosperity that had come through global cooperation. Notwithstanding its devastating effect, COVID-19 is forcing us to revisit and appreciate this sense of community and collaboration. We have come to appreciate that the impact of the pandemic is amplified by pre-existing vulnerabilities. It impacts the poor more than the rich, minority groups more than majority groups, older persons more than younger persons, and the unhealthy more than the healthy. Alarmingly, while COVID-19 has claimed the lives of more men than women, it is inflicting a disproportionate care and economic burden on women. However, it is my view that the biggest risk to this crisis, or from this crisis, is to attempt to respond to it in an insular and silo approach. Any attempt to do so will further deepen the scars already inflicted on all nations and will serve to only lengthen the recovery process. I now turn my attention to the job of acknowledging the many individuals and agencies who have made today possible. Firstly, I would like to express the government of St. Lucia's profound gratitude to the government of India for making available and agreeing to repurpose the UN-India development funds towards St. Lucia's COVID-19 response efforts. Some $500,000 is allocated to the purchase of PPEs and for the expansion of the public assistance in St. Lucia. Ambassador Kanyal, please convey our thanks to your government, the Republic of India. Additionally, I wish to acknowledge and thank the United Nations Food Program, Mr. Regis Chapman and the team from the UN agency responsible for managing the grant resources, and who has also made available some of their own resources towards this initiative. I now turn my attention to the St. Lucian agencies that have facilitated the accessing of these resources. And of course, these include the Department of External Affairs, through St. Lucia's permanent representative to the United Nations, under the able leadership of Ambassador Cosmas Richardson and his team, for the invaluable support provided during the initial stages, ensuring that we made a persuasive final submission, as well as being an effective conduit between St. Lucia and our donors. I would also like to recognize the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Empowerment, and Local Government, the agency responsible for cash transfers in St. Lucia, and who will be implementing the expansion of the Public Assistance Program, as we call PAP. For them, the work only has just begun. In particular, the welfare team at the ministry for the deep allegiance and dedication in helping to realize government's key objective through the Public Assistance Program. Of course, they're already preoccupied on the ground implementing the recertification and expansion of the PAP. The team's high spirit of collaboration is indeed noted and deeply appreciated as the Ministry of Equity looks forward to the partnership in future initiatives. I wish to also recognize the support provided from the colleagues from my own department, the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation, for providing guidance on the programming of those resources and ensuring that the mandate of the Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan is clearly articulated to the development community. It would be remiss of me if I did not recognize the speakers, both in studio and virtually, who have contributed so successfully to the launch and signing ceremony of this very important initiative. So I thank each and every one, in particular, of course, P.S. Velda Joseph, Permanent Secretary in the Department of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Ms. Esther Rigobert, Permanent Secretary in the Department of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service. Honorable Guy Joseph, Minister in the Department of Economic Development, in the Ministry of Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation. Mr. Regis Chapman, Head of Office, World Food Program, Barbados, Caribbean Preparedness and Response. And of course, virtually, Ambassador His Excellency Mahinda Singh Kanya, Ambassador of India to Suriname and High Commissioner of India to St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados. And of course, Honorable Leonard Montoute, Minister of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment. Of course, in conclusion, heartfelt thanks to the team at the Government Information Service, GIS, for facilitating the live coverage of this signing ceremony. So to all on behalf of the government of St. Lucia and the poor and vulnerable, I say thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Emmanuel. And ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, thank you everyone for being here. As we end, I do ask you please to remain with us for just a moment. We have refreshments just to the outside of this door, so you can engage a little. And hopefully some of us can get a few minutes with Mr. Chapman, who has to, you leave today, Mr. Chapman? Tomorrow, very well. So do enjoy St. Lucia for the brief moment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, as we end these proceedings.